Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. In the last episode, we talked about the boom that's coming in manufacturing. Whether it's Canada or US, I think all countries are going to need to manufacture more within their own space, as we should. And I have a fellow Canadian on this morning, Cara Moeller Poppitt. Welcome to the show, Cara.
Thank you, Trevor, for having me. Always great to see you, my friend.
So Cara and I have been friends for a while. We met through a speaking program, and we went through a similar program as well on writing our book. And Cara's book is coming out right after this podcast gets released. So you'll be able to pre-order or order it now. And it's called Big Freakin Change, because manufacturing is going to be going through a lot of changes. And Cara, I learned more about you and 10,000 entrepreneurs that you've guided, helping unlock their potential, all that creativity, and more importantly, your business acumen. Because I've been watching you on your book launch, and it has taken off, and I'm so excited for you. I've got to read a preview version, which was awesome. So I was able to think more about like how does your model and manufacturing tie together. And hey, being in Canada's top 2% of female entrepreneurs, that's pretty cool too. So it's a privilege to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks so much.
So you're in Calgary and Alberta, a lot going on there. And at the end of the day, it's manufacturing in each area is important. And
hmm
we got to be making changes. So these changes, we don't even know what they are. We know that from a labor standpoint, we're gonna need a different set of labor. We're gonna need younger people going to more vocational schools. We're gonna need maybe different equipment, different locations, but just so much is needed. And I know you have friends in manufacturing. You haven't worked in manufacturing, but I see your book, and we'll go through your model today of just helping that. How do you see that connection happening?
Well, I think like any business, changes all around us, and we're faced right now with a lot of tariffs changing the Canadian economy with manufacturing, which is going to change a lot for a lot of people. But outside of this specific time in our lives and in our career and in the economy, we're always faced with change, and businesses, especially and entrepreneurs, especially, have to learn how to navigate change in a healthy and sustainable way that's going to serve the people, serve the bottom lines, and really make the impact. I mean, you can't compromise quality control. You need to keep that nice and sharp. So you got to really understand what are the factors that you can control and what are the factors you can't control. So many businesses in manufacturing right now are stuck, right? They're feeling like all these
Mhm.
things are changing. They're losing huge contracts. Some of them are gaining contracts depending on where you're located. And the environment is shifting. And so really understanding how to make big freaking change in my book, the cycle of change model really helps people, also organizations, and the culture to keep it nice and strong. So I think from a manufacturing perspective, you got to understand, okay, the tariffs are out of your control if you're living in Canada, right? So lots of companies are looking at shipping and doing manufacturing in different countries. And so the trade partners, there's also interprovincial relationships that Canadian companies are now looking at making so that they can be a little bit more sustainable and not connect with the US at all. So, without getting too much into politics, I really believe that fundamentally, when we're going through a massive change, we got to identify what type of change. We can't just get overwhelmed and stay stuck. We got to be proactive. And so, really understanding the type of change, the impact, and your ideal outcome. So, when I work with entrepreneurs, Trevor, a lot of people that come, they'll say, I'm feeling really stuck in this area of my business. And as we go through it and unpeel the onion and go through all the layers, we get to the root of the problem. And often it's a lack of confidence. And I see a lot of
Mm.
entrepreneurs, especially in manufacturing, feeling not confident about their business operations. Normal. I would feel the same, right?
Yeah.
When we're hit this long. But if we really understand that it's our confidence that's driving, or a lack of confidence is driving some of our insecurities, and we have new tools to manage that insecurity, we can, increase our bottom lines, develop healthy margins again, have a stronger team than ever, and really understanding where we need to adapt and how quick do we need to adapt in certain areas, and how do we create the ideal outcome. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in the problems, and I like to shift the mindset into looking at possibilities. Okay, so this is happening, this is crappy, this is out of our control. Let's plant the seed of possibility. What else could be possible? How do you turn lemons into lemonade, right? And I take that kind of approach as I help a lot of different businesses.
Yeah, so it's like you've been in manufacturing, Kara, because I've spent 25 years in those four walls.
Yeah,
And yeah, we get stuck just in the daily grind because
yes.
the next hour is important on how many parts we get out, that everyone's going to be safe, that we got the quality. And confidence, you know, we disguise it, especially us
Mhm.
guys
As men,
sometimes.
yeah, for sure.
and and we overcompensate with telling people what to do, which is about my book. I'm following your lead there. I'm a year or two behind. And we 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 tell people what to do and we give direction, and then we tell people again, and then we get into this whole area of, you know what, I just got to keep on telling people, or I'm gonna have to write them up or fire them.
Mm.
And so I'm trying to help these manufacturing leaders make a change
Yeah.
and being a little more vulnerable, because it seems like a lot of them are stuck right now just with that mindset of, I just got to push harder. I just got to
Yeah.
push harder. And maybe we can kind of walk through your model and kind of understand, you know, if you're a manufacturing leader right now and you're feeling like
Hmm.
maybe this could be me. Because I can tell you, I was looking after, millions of dollars in production, and I felt that pressure. And I just kind of pushed a little harder sometimes because maybe I didn't have the confidence to like unpack like what's really going on, right? And I didn't have the confidence to have that deeper conversation. And man, I was stuck. So like your first
Hmm.
part is just acknowledging that you're stuck, and I did get to that point.
Hmm. Trevor, it's not even just manufacturing, it's every industry, every business. We go through these cycles. And our natural tendency is just to push forward. Nobody knows it's a lack of confidence, but I'm going to help
Mm.
reveal that. And really we blame the problems, and we tend as leaders to not look inward enough. And I think also because of the demands and our lens that we're looking at the business operations, we're looking at all the different areas: manufacturing, marketing, promotion, sales, your contracts. Like there's so many moving parts. And every single person that's part of the business is looking at a part. And as an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, our lens is very wide. And sometimes we can get frustrated and be like, why can't you do your job? If you don't do your job, you don't have a job. And sometimes that's necessary, but more often than not, we are not painting the picture of the impact it is having on production, or it's the impact on the bottom line. So when we're working with employees, if we start with curiosity, as your keynote in your book alludes to, it's really powerful because we start asking people, because when people are have this buy-in into the relationship and into the impact and into the company, they're going to work differently. They're going to work harder. They're not going to cut corners. They're going to understand,
Mhm.
and you're going to have a healthier culture. So, yes, the absolute first step is acknowledge you're stuck. And this can be professionally or personally. So, in a manufacturing climate right now, okay, we're stuck. We're faced with massive tariffs. We're going to have to either, lots of people are laying off, other people are hiring offshore. The plant
Mhm.
itself is changing the operation. So first you acknowledge you're stuck. You cannot make change if you don't acknowledge there's a problem. So if you don't want to use the language stuck, you can say, okay, acknowledge there's a problem.
Well, here's what got me thinking is that when I work with plants, it's often, especially if it's a corporation, they're getting pressure because they're not getting better results.
Right.
And they're getting more pressure and that sometimes doesn't help.
Hmm.
And so like acknowledge that you're stuck is a fact of, okay, what I'm doing right now is not getting me unstuck, right? So if I go out and I do the exact same thing tomorrow, so maybe that's where it's just having that, if you're driving into work, you're going to a manufacturing plant today, you're going to go through this model with Cara, and it's like, well, are you stuck? Because the next one is identity change.
Hmm.
So if
You,
we can acknowledge that, and I'm running this plant, I'm not getting the results. What does that mean? Identity change.
yeah, so we identify the change. So the first one is acknowledge
Okay,
you're
hold
stuck.
on a minute. Well, hey, Libby, we're gonna I made a little slip up here. So we're gonna re-record this little section here, and I'm gonna start Trevor just fumbled his words. Identify the change. So, okay, Kara. So we've got manufacturer leader. He's going into the plant. She's going into the plant right now. Then the next step after acknowledging that we're stuck is that we need to identify the change.
Yes.
And really, for this situation, it's a lot of it's going to be behavioral.
Hmm.
Like how identify that we need a behavior change and talk about confidence. I don't know if I can get
Yeah.
everybody convinced that they need to make that change.
Yeah, so often we need to meet the employees where they're at, and we have to make the reality relevant to them. And so when we identify the change, I use dimensions of wellness. There's 8 different areas that we can change. And so one of them is behavioral.
Mm,
But more so, it's financial. You're going to have relational changes, and relational changes also will be impacted in manufacturing, right? People changing positions,
mhm,
environmental. So some people might be moving to different locations or a plant is shutting down. Um, so, anyways, we can go into mindset, we can go into physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational, and environmental. And really, what I'm talking about is so often when we have a problem in business, we get stuck in overwhelm that we can't see all the layers of the change. And so we need to identify the most pressing type of change in this moment and also realize that it's going to have a ripple effect on all the other areas. So for manufacturing right now, yes, there's behavioral changes that need to happen, but I believe that it's the financial change that's really going to drive some of these big decisions,
oh yeah.
right? So if you identify, okay, we got to talk about the finances, well, the employee, that's not as relevant. What's relevant to them is do they have a job and is their job safe, right? And
Hmm.
so painting the picture to say, listen, we want to keep our employees on board. In order to do that, we need to achieve different results. And so change is hard and change is part of the process. And we're going to go through this together. Now I'm getting
Hmm.
some buy-in and I'm painting a little bit of sense of security to the employee because that's what's relevant to them, right? And
Hmm.
so, for example, we're going to be sourcing different materials, or I need to change your hours, or I need to change your shifts, whatever the change is. But to beat around the bush on change is not healthy. Nobody likes change, and so I like to say shifts when I'm communicating. We're going to make some shifts, and these shifts are gonna add up, right? Because
Hmm.
even the word change triggers a negative emotion in the brain, because we're wired for safety and security and consistency. People don't like unexpected. So,
Hmm.
for example, we acknowledge we have a problem. We're going to identify the change. So, the financial aspect is stressing us out. We got to talk about this. Then for the employer, the entrepreneur, the person who's running the shop, they have to manage their mindset. And when we manage our own mindset, we can help others manage their mindset. So it's got to work both in an organization. So if my mindset is, holy crap, this is crazy, everything sucks, everything's hard, I'm just going to keep pushing and trying to do the same thing, get different results, we're going to hit burnout, we're going to hit overwhelm, and we're not going to get the results we want. So managing our mindset will be, okay, I'm faced with some serious challenges. I'm going to focus on the things I can control, and I'm going to accept the things I cannot control. And I'm going to help paint the
Hmm.
picture of that change to my employees. Now, in some industries, it's appropriate and accepted to do, mindset updates. In manufacturing, I think you get a lot of pushback on like, you might get the middle finger popped at you, whatever it might be. But understanding even to say a manager mindset will be, in the past we've struggled with change. We have to adapt. We have to adopt change right now. There's no other option. And so when you're getting a little resistance or you want to continue doing the same thing, I need you to understand that we're making changes in the business. And so that could be part of the managing the mindset.
Yeah.
And as the entrepreneur, it's really about, okay, we're going to tackle this type of change first, the financial. Then I'm going to work on the environmental. So I'm going to talk about, where is our plant going to shift? Then I'm going to talk about uh, the processes. Maybe our processes are changing. But when you try to tackle all the types of change at once, it's not healthy. And most often, you're not going to lead to the best results.
Here's how I would frame it for a manufacturing
Yeah.
manager. I would say that the finances do need to be talked about, right? And people do connect with that because they know their paychecks come from that.
Yeah.
So, and if we acknowledge that, hey, we're not where we're supposed to be, and that's got to impact everybody's jobs. And I liked how you talked earlier too about, whether it's different marketing and different departments, but in manufacturing, we call it silos, right? We have these
Yes.
silos where, quality department, really the production department and the maintenance group, that's really the kind of like the heartbeat, right? And then
Yes.
everybody else is around there to keep that heart pumping because if we're not making anything, then
Right.
the rest of the groups don't really
Don't
matter.
work.
I was a materials manager for many years and I knew my role. I knew my role was to make production successful and
Hmm.
that I wouldn't have any materials to manage if they weren't making anything. So it's kind of like getting that alignment of like
Yeah.
the finances. Yes, absolutely. We need to be transparent with that, but we have to acknowledge that we are stuck, right?
Hmm.
That whatever, however we're running the operation right now is not getting us there.
Yeah.
And this is it's a big change overall, but you know what? Let's just do it in small shifts. So
Exactly.
what's in our control that we can go in the line today? You're driving to work, can you identify a change that you can make today? Is there something small? Asking your team and I think just that
Hmm.
alone, Kara, if they just read your book, they kind of follow this model, even just listen to this podcast, then it's like you can't change someone else's mindset without changing
Right.
your own,
Yes.
right? So it's kind of like just talking that through and everybody and getting everybody on that same page.
Yeah, alignment is so important, Trevor. And I often find that in times of extreme pressure, is we get disconnected with our team, right? We make assumptions
Mhm.
on what they're thinking or feeling. They're making assumptions on us. And you said, we got to decide what success is. And I think painting the picture of success for your team as vividly as possible is the best form of communication you can give them. So, hey guys, this is
Mhm.
what's going on. This is what we need to do. Success looks like this. This is how many units we need. This is how many contracts. This is the speed. This is whatever the metrics are,
Yeah.
so that it's so crystal clear. It's black and white. There's no gray. Because someone might be like, I thought we were successful. I did A, B, and C, or I'm working as hard as I can, but we're working ineffectively, or we need different traction to get the momentum.
So like if I'm going into a plant now, I'm going to ask, okay, how's your shift pass offs?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's something that's in our control.
Yes.
How's our daily meetings with our teams? Is engineering, maintenance, quality, well techs, whatever technical people, like are we doing what's in our control every day? Let's just start there because that's the vision.
Yeah.
Just like we talked about your book launch, right?
Yeah.
You had a plan on your book launch. You can't control how many people that can be impacted by the change of your model, but you can control what your plan was to do the book launch. And
Yes.
fortunately you're getting the results as well, and I'm excited to get your book. But I look at that same as manufacturing, like
Yeah.
we know what works, but we
Yeah.
get stuck and we don't make the changes. And even when the pass offs aren't happening, or maybe the production board is not being filled out, or
Hmm.
someone walks by without their safety glasses, and we
Right.
start getting complacent on that. How
Yeah.
do how do we manage that mindset and just say, okay, guys, we need to make a shift here.
Yeah. And Trevor, I think it's so important that as we are stepping into leadership, we also reflect on how do we lead our team better? And the question I like every business to ask their employees in all different silos is, how do we make this better? How do we make this safety protocol better? How do we make,
Mhm.
and let them talk? And it's not that you're going to take all the suggestions, but you get the feedback and then you empower your team and say, you know what, that's an excellent idea. I'd like you to dive deeper. I'd like you to improve our safety protocol. That's excellent. Please move forward, and you start delegating. Or, I think that the pass offs aren't effective because this there's 10 minutes of idle time. Okay, let's talk about that. What could we do to make it better? And when you get employee buy-in, you get better results, you get more engagement, you get a healthier culture. And again, it goes down to being more curious. How do we make it better?
This is why you and I get along because it's I think that's just enough for the listeners to walk into the plant now and just saying like it's the and how do you make it better and acknowledge that you're asking the question, not
Yeah,
telling people I need you to do this to make it better. And that's what I
yeah,
see, Cara.
yeah, of
And it's
course.
like for me, with the mindset change and the way I want to see momentum built is like what what's something you can turn into a question that's maybe something in your head, right? So how can
Yeah,
you be a little more curious and instead of saying, hey, this is a bottom line issue, this is a production issue, this is a standard that we're not following, we need to follow it. How do you turn
yes.
that into a question?
And an empowering question, Trevor. That's the
Oh, say
key
more on
is
that.
is make it empowering. So when we blame or shame, it just hurts our self-esteem, okay? Our confidence, men, women, doesn't matter. We can get defensive,
Mm-hmm.
we can have fear, we can be ego, we can whatever our
Mm-hmm.
reaction is going to be. But if it's an empowering question of like, hey, I see you're working super hard. Thank you for that. How do we make your job better? How do we increase your job satisfaction? How do we produce more units? How do we ensure that everyone's following the safety protocol we have? It's positive. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we're giving feedback as a leader it's hard because we have to get less emotional, we have to get detached, and we have to give them direction. And if we're in overwhelm, we're not thinking the best. And so I like to say, here's an action step I'd like you to take moving forward. And I use the word moving forward or next time. And, if you're giving your employee a warning, like, look, this is the third time your safety goggles weren't on. Next time your safety goggles aren't on, you're going to be writing this up and you're going to explain to me why you didn't have them on, and that's your final call.
Yeah.
Do you need support with this? How can I support you? I don't know how else I can say it, that this is critical. And then, you're getting them to go, oh man, like now I got an action that I have to do.
Yeah. I think the more that we talk and how we help others, and it is that whole fact of like, hey, it's the third time, but let's just stop for a minute. Like, how do we get to the third? Like,
Mhm.
what's missing? Like, when I say it's your eyes are really important,
Yeah,
like your family.
exactly.
But let's kind of dive into that.
And
Uh,
help
and,
me understand is a great line that leaders can use. Help
mm,
me understand why this keeps happening. Help me
mm.
understand what I'm missing. Help me understand why we're not, our pass offs, we have a document, we've had training. Help me understand why it's not happening. Oh, well, it's not happening because these three steps are not reasonable. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Let's talk about that. Let's make them reasonable.
I think we're running, right? We're running.
Oh, yeah.
We're going so fast, and
Yeah.
it's like we just want the board to be filled out, but
Yeah.
really just taking that bit of time of saying let's unpack that. Like, do you want the board filled out? I think, and usually they would. And then it's kind of like, well, let's talk about what's in the way. And I think the big one is just coming back, and it's that follow up. If I know you're going to
Yeah.
come back and you're going to follow up with me, like you said, hey, write this out. We're going to follow up here if this happens again. Or hey, I'm just going to walk by tomorrow morning, like, or you tell me when I could walk by that board but what's important about your model is just to zoom it back out. You've connected the teams in the fact of like, why is this important? Like back to just the
Yeah.
finances, to the bigger picture, like how are we bought in? And what I'm taking away from this conversation for me, Kara, is just the reminder of like, if you want change and you feel like your team's stuck, you can't force the change. Like you can't
No,
push change. Right. And I've
no.
heard you talk about that and you have to
Yeah.
bring them with you and yeah, build that momentum, and then if we follow kind of your model then and then invest into yourself. Talk about that.
Yeah, so building momentum after we manage our mindset and we build momentum, but building momentum is inside everyone's comfort zone. So for the employee that's not putting the safety goggles on, hey, every time you come in, I have this checklist and you need to initial that your safety goggles are on. Okay. I'm doing something small that's within their comfort zone that they can physically do without making a drastic change. So that's always inside the comfort zone. And then we invest in ourselves. So as leaders, I like to call it reflection and intention. So it's different than self-care. It's different than just a day of golf or whatever you do to kind of build your energy back up. It can be physical rest. It can be emotional rest. It doesn't matter. But what matters is the intention with reflection. So help me
Mm,
understand, what am I missing to be a great leader? How am I showing up? What do I think my employees are thinking right now? What's most relevant to them? Investing in yourself is taking that time. And for an employee and for a business, it's investing back in your people. So
mhm.
thank you so much. We've now done this new where everyone's initialing. This is helping us making sure we have our safety goggles on. So as a little gift, everyone's getting a new pair of sunglasses. Thank you so much, right? I'm investing in a gift, but I'm
Yeah,
investing in my team to say,
I
hey, we
like
made
that.
this little shift and it's great. And now every time you put your sunglasses on, it's also going to subconsciously remind
That's
you,
cool.
put your eye goggles on, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
like that
yeah,
because where I was thinking more is we'll say, hey, the team, maintenance and production needs to work better together. Okay, everybody understand that? We got to need to do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, are you really investing into like how does that team functioning? Like, are you
yeah,
talk and you just talk about it, right? And is that
yeah,
part of act? Because when I look at the next step of act boldly,
yeah.
for me, acting boldly means calling it out to say like, hey, we don't work that well together.
Hmm.
We're kind of worried about our own areas. If we did work better together, what would be different? Like,
Yeah.
like
So,
what does that that to me is that what acting boldly is? Because people are
yeah,
and including myself at a point, like I didn't want to bridge that conversation if things weren't working well. I just try to put more
yeah,
pressure on and hopefully everything works out.
yeah. It's normal. It's our natural tendency because we haven't really been taught models to make change.
Mm,
And this goes back to evolutionary psychology, how we're wired, how typical plants run, how manufacturing processes always run, what's your standard operating procedures. And you just keep doing the same thing, but we need to evolve. And so acting
mm,
boldly is always outside of your comfort zone, and it's a big decision. So we've acknowledged we have a problem as a team. Our productivity and our safety standards need to be improved. We're going to manage our mindset by really understanding that change is hard and we can do hard things. We're going to build momentum. We have this new safety protocol. As a team, we're getting these sunglasses. Great. Let's do something fun. And now it's time to really shake things up. We have two new standard operating procedures, massive change, massive growth. We're shipping to these new places, like whatever the big thing is,
mhm.
but you've brought them along in the process of change.
Yes.
Most people just go, boom, here's the change, deal with it, suck it up. And then later on, they think about all the repercussions or all the things they need to clean up. But if you paint the picture of what success is, then you say, okay, guys, we're acting boldly. What it could go right, we often think about the things that can go wrong. So let's address them so that our team is equipped and we've already thought through it. And let's talk about the things that can go right. And that's really key in leadership is that who wants to work for a company that just keeps getting slammed and keeps getting the pressure? I mean, we have pressure in our own lives, right? And
Mhm.
manufacturing is full of pressure and lots of
Oh my gosh.
challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to, as the next step is enjoy the journey, right? Like
Yeah.
let's celebrate those wins. And if this is the thing that if we didn't hit the numbers, but we did the shift pass off. We had the meeting. We've done all the checks. Everybody was, wearing their safety equipment. And we got to trust that, we need to do it again tomorrow and we need maybe to make one small shift. But we got to trust that, celebrate that we did what we said we're going to do. Because,
Yeah.
man, if we can do that alone, I mean, that's a big freaking change.
Yes, and enjoying the journey from a leadership perspective and an entrepreneur is finding like maybe you didn't hit the metric you wanted, or there were still safety issues, or whatever the quality control. Maybe that still needs improvement, but you start celebrating the little wins because wins will start programming your mind to look for more wins. And so when
Mm,
we approach our employees, it can be like, you know what, I really appreciate that you're wearing your goggles now. That's awesome. I'd like to now put you on a bigger assembly line, or I want you to operate this other machinery, whatever it may be. I want you to now lead somebody else. I want you now that you understand the quality control or the safety implications. You're now going to be the team lead of safety for the next week or the next month, or I'm putting you in this new
mhm.
position. And you're celebrating what's going right. And so often we're so focused, and employees get disconnected and disengaged because they're like, nothing I do, like, we're never going to reach the mark. Well, why don't you try and why don't we celebrate and enjoy the journey along the way? And Trevor, really what happens when you get to that stage, even if you didn't hit the numbers or the goal, the KPIs, you have unlocked your confidence. And not just personally, but as a company, that you can get through hard things, that you can make these shifts, that you can redesign engineering, that you can change your standard operating procedures, whatever the thing is. But it builds confidence in leadership, it builds confidence in self, it builds confidence as a culture, and it builds confidence as a company. And that's really where you get into a great sense of
Mm,
momentum and flow. Because let's face it, if we have a poor retention rate and people are quitting or we're firing them, that costs us a lot of money. That costs us
mhm,
time, energy, money, resources, right? If our quality is not tight or we have safety implications, it can cause us lawsuits. Like, the implications are massive. And sometimes we don't take enough time on painting the picture of success, walking people through a cycle of change. Don't just give them the change and say, do it. It's not sustainable, and then you have more problems. But if you go through this process, it really helps you reach the success level that you're wanting.
I'm going to take this model. I'm going to kind of walk it through
Yes,
with one of the leaders because,
yes,
yeah, if we can go through and do the follow up properly and just kind of follow the steps and kind of get them on board, ask them the questions, let them have some success. Like let them run a
yeah,
good meeting and then just celebrate that. Celebrate what went well in the meeting. Okay, so what do you need to can build off that tomorrow? But Kara, you're it's like you're in the manufacturing plant. It is. It's confidence. If your frontline leaders, if your
yeah,
production leaders, if they have the confidence, it's like, hey, I got this. Like I know that we have the right information. I know that this line is going to improve if we keep doing this.
yeah,
Then you got this. This is fantastic. I am beyond ecstatic for manufacturing, for women entrepreneurs, for men entrepreneurs, because I've read your
yeah.
book and it's helped me. And what do you want to leave these listeners with driving into manufacturing plants today?
To have the courage to make change. Often, leaders, we know we need to make change, but we get stuck in the day to day and we just keep grinding that we don't make the necessary changes that are needed to create the momentum and the business success. So, courage is inside of all of us. We got to flex that muscle. We have to have the hard conversations. We need to change the processes. We need to have the team meetings that nobody wants. And we need to embrace change. If you can do that today, and just start leaning into change to understand that change is healthy and change is necessary for better results, you're 50% there. It's really in the mindset. And if you can bring your team along that journey and you understand their fears and you understand their insecurities and you understand the challenges that they face in their job, you're going to be able to fine tune and get it into a well operating machine.
I'm excited. And okay, so Big Freakin Change, the link will be in the show notes. If you're listening to this later, it'll still be for sale.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Carrie, you've poured years of work into this. You've tested it. I got so much admiration for you just as
Mm,
a person, a leader, and the care that you have for others and the care that you have for your reader and
yeah.
and what's gone into this. So how do the listeners
Thank
best
you.
follow you?
Yeah. So you can check out my website, carapoppitt.com, and bigfreakinchange.com are the best ways. And all my socials are Cara Poppitt.
Right on. Thanks so much, Kara.
Thank you, Trevor,
Appreciate
for
you.
having me. Keep manufacturing that greatness, buddy. Bye for now.
Hey, folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.